to start with a roll call of the committee members that are in attendance as well as the staff before going into an approval of the agenda. So our chair, Kevin Honeycode, is not here yet, but our vice chair is here. Matt, would you be able to lead us through the roll call?
Absolutely. Hi, this is Matt Fusco. I'm vice chair of the Passive Lands Recreation Committee, also a member of the Land Conservation Advisory Board and a local landscape architect. Go ahead and start with folks in the room in attendance, if there is anybody, and then we can follow with those that will be joining us remotely.
No one is in person today, so we can go ahead and start on.
All right, I'll go.
Then, yeah, Bob Gale, go.
Bob Gale, I'm on the Land Conservation Advisory Board and the Passive Recreation Subcommittee.
Ann Babcock, I'm on the Passive Recreation Subcommittee and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Hi, this is Bob Turner. I'm on the Land Conservation Advisory Board and here with Passive Rec.
Do we have any other subcommittee members in attendance at this moment?
David Burdett, I'm with the Parks and Recs Advisory Board and of course the subcommittee also.
Thank you, David. And it looks like Kevin just joined us as well. So Kevin, we were just going through the roll call if you would like to introduce yourself. If you can hear us. Kevin? Okay, we'll go through the staff first. I'm Jill Carter. I am the Open Space Bond Project Manager, and I'm also the staff liaison for this committee.
I am Allison Daines, the Director for Buncombe County Parks and Recreation.
And Jennifer Harrison, Ag and Land Resources Director.
Good afternoon, everyone. Rachel Sawyer here, Buncombe County staff with the Strategic Partnerships Office.
And I am Thomas Gold, the Principal Park Planner at Buncombe County Parks and Rec.
And then Kevin, are you able to hear us now? Maybe not. Okay. Matt, can you possibly lead us through the approval of the agenda and the minutes?
Hey, Jill, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Can you lead us through the approval of the agenda and the minutes so we can go into
yeah. I'm just having a little bit of technical difficulty as I'm joining from my cell phone, but we already did roll call. I'm Kevin Conricode. I'm the chair of the subcommittee. Can we get a vote to approve? I'm going to do this in one vote of last meeting's minutes and today's agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Everything is approved and we can move forward. Jill, I'll put it back to you.
Great, thank you. So I'll pass it over to our first presenter momentarily, but I did just want to pause real quick to do some housekeeping. There are a number of staff from Buncombe County on this call. I just want to clarify that they are here in a support role for the subcommittee to be able to provide their professional expertise and experience. They are not voting members of the subcommittee, and they do not have a say in what the subcommittee's recommendations are, but we are very grateful that they are here. Additionally, this meeting is being recorded and will be available online for any members of the community to watch, so be aware of that. And then finally, I am going to be keeping time. I will do a little 1 minute finger wave when you have 1 minute left in your allotted presentation time. And then after the presentation, we'll allow for 5 minutes for Q&A. And I know we're getting started a little bit later than intended, so please don't worry, you still have your full amount of time for your presentation. So with that, I will pass it over to our first presenter, which is the Woodman Trailhead and Educational Park. And you should be able to share your screen and run through your slides yourself.
Okay, great. Is everybody seeing our presentation up on your screen?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well then, Carol, if you'd like to get us started.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Carol Groban. I'm a member of the Board of Friends and Neighbors of Swannanoa, also known as FANS, the applicant on this project. I'm a 25-year resident of Swannanoa, and I have never been as excited about Swannanoa's future as I am right now. Swannanoa is on the cusp of a major transformation, and we're here today to tell you about a project that has the potential to be a critical component of that transformation. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about FANS and who we are. We're an all-volunteer community nonprofit that was formed in 2007. Swannanoa is an unincorporated area of the county, and as such, we have been historically underrepresented and in many cases also underserved and somewhat overlooked. So FANS was formed to help advocate for Swannanoa and to give our community a voice and a seat at the table. Our goals are to build community and to help improve the quality of life for Swannanoa residents. And this project that we're here to talk to you about today does both of those things in spades. So I'm going to turn this over now to our other presenters to explain why this project represents such a unique opportunity at this very unique moment in Swannanoa's history. Megan?
Hi there, everybody. I am Megan McCreary. I'm a board member of Friends and Neighbors of Swannanoa. I'm also a board member of Connect Buncombe. And FANS has been working on several campaigns recently. These campaigns are working towards a common goal, which is to make on-the-ground connections between Swannanoa's neighborhoods and to provide improved recreational access to its residents. As Carol said, as an unincorporated community in Buncombe County, Swannanoa lacks elected officials that advocate for its residents. And as a result, it's lacking basic infrastructure like sidewalks and recreational resources like parks and greenways. So this project, the Woodman Trailhead and Educational Park, presents a fantastic opportunity to make progress on achieving both of those goals. This project is located near downtown Swannanoa on the Swannanoa River, and it's on the proposed alignment of the future Fontaflora State Trail. It's also located between two historic working-class neighborhoods, Grovemont and Beacon Village. North of the site, we have Grovemont. It was the first planned community in the United States and now has many hundreds of residents. It's host to Swannanoa's Winterfest, Groovin' on Grovemont, Cinema on the Square, and is home to the Swannanoa Library and one of the only neighborhood parks in all of Swannanoa, Grovemont Park. Beacon Village, to the south, is a community with hundreds of modest homes that were built for the workers of the Beacon Mill, which closed in 2002 and burned down in 2003. However, Symmetry Financial recently announced exciting plans to revitalize this 40-acre brownfield. It will feature a bike park, natural surface trails, an event lawn, and future outdoor-focused businesses. The Woodman Trailhead property is ideally located in order to provide a pedestrian and a visual connection between these two historic communities. It also provides considerable river frontage in order to take advantage of the immense potential for recreational opportunities along the Swannanoa River. Beyond the footprint of the park, this trailhead will also be the gateway for many Swannanoa residents to the rest of the trail's 150-mile route. So, Swannanoa has 7 schools, a Habitat for Humanity community, several mountain housing opportunities, townhomes and apartment complexes, numerous mobile home parks, and as one of the last remaining affordable areas to live in the county, it's home to many lower income residents, seniors, and working class families who struggle to make ends meet. Many of these residents are lacking access to reliable transportation. But because there are essentially no sidewalks in Swannanoa, these vulnerable residents walk from their homes to businesses and schools along the narrow sides of major roadways. FANS started a Sidewalks for Swannanoa campaign last summer in hopes of addressing this very safety issue. So the Woodman Trailhead would not only provide recreational opportunities that a greenway would bring, but it would also act as a local connector for many of the underserved residential and business communities in Swannanoa. So what are we proposing here? We are proposing that Buncombe County purchase the Woodman of the World property, which is shown above the river on the left side of this map. We are proposing that the county acquire an easement behind the neighboring storage facility, as well as purchasing a portion of the property across the river, which is owned by Mike Stewart. Combined with the two county-owned parcels that sit just upriver, these properties would add up to a 6 to 8 acre park with over 1,800 feet of river frontage along the Swannanoa River. The Swannanoa River US 70 feasibility study that was written in 2010 recommends that the Fonta Flora State Trail pass through these properties and cross to the south side of the river with a pedestrian bridge. It's for this reason that we're recommending purchasing a bridge from Mike Stewart on the south side of the river. To dive into the details of the park, we would provide trailhead parking for the Fonta Flora State Trail. We are proposing recreating a wetland on site by removing existing fill from what was previously a pond, but was infilled several years ago. This wetland would have a boardwalk and observational dock. It would be perfect for hosting outdoor classroom activities for the 7 schools located in Swannanoa. The 2 county-owned properties would provide for a large wildflower meadow, woodland trails, and multiple opportunities for improved stormwater management. Altogether, more than a half mile of natural surface trails are possible on these properties, in addition to the 1,800 linear feet of Fonta Flora State Trail. At the western end of Woodman is the pedestrian bridge that would cross the Swannanoa River. This bridge would make it possible to establish those vital connections between Grovemont and Beacon Village, as well as allowing the Fonta Flora to continue through downtown Swannanoa. I'm going to hand things over to RJ now to discuss the conservation impacts of this project.
Hi, I'm RJ Taylor. I'm also a board member of FANS and been involved with greenways and trail development initiatives along the Swannanoa River and elsewhere in our community. And I was also previously worked at RiverLink in land conservation and park initiatives. In addition to those community impacts that Megan just outlined for this land acquisition and recreational easements that provided along this state trail system, this project through Swannanoa would also allow for public access off the trails to 1,800 linear feet of riparian corridor of the Swannanoa River on what was previously and is still previously private lands. This land in a linear park along the river would be both protected and enhanced through this park initiative grant we're requesting. This would provide up to 8 acres of open space, new open space that could be used by the public for passive recreation on natural surface trails. These lands would also provide for public parking as trailhead access to the Fonta Flora State Trail. And like you have already heard, this linear park area is at a critical crossroads for public access from both Grovemont to the north and Beacon Village to the south. The site has numerous small tributaries on it that drain the Grovemont area and could be used for stormwater treatment in wetlands before draining into the Swannanoa. And that large wetland area she talked about would also be restored for both habitat and for stormwater capture. Plans also would include invasive species control and reintroduction of native vegetation for site restoration in this park and environmental education, which was already mentioned. And these open spaces and wetland areas would provide a valuable environmental education venue for this whole community.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brad Spiegel. And I'm a FANS board member and an urban planner with the Made by Mountains partnership. Just to kind of show you the regional perspective of this project at play, we have an incredible opportunity to connect the Hellbender Regional Trail System with the Fonta Flora State Trail, which would be the eastern spur of the Hellbender. You can see the blue dots where our project would fit in at the regional context. So this would be an opportunity to connect 7 counties, creating a 230-mile network of pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. So we're so excited about that potential opportunity for the county and the region. And you can see that we have an incredible partnership that was already at play, and we intend to kind of broaden this, continue to broaden this and make this a very collaborative process We also have the ability to call upon these partners for support throughout the implementation process, and that will definitely enhance all of our relationships going forward.
Hi, I'm Julia Weatherford, and I'm on the Black Mountain Greenways and Trails Committee, and I'm currently serving on the board of the Friends of the Fontaflora State Trail. And I just wanted to highlight the importance of this connection. Each of 14 state trails in North Carolina has a nonprofit whose task is to go out and make that trail. They're tasked to work with the local governments and nonprofits and other entities to plan and fund and complete the trail. And this makes Fontaflora a powerhouse partner for Buncombe County for this project and future projects along the trail. Fontaflora receives annual capacity funding from the state, but also because it's a state trail, it has access to a separate pot of money that has been designated over $30 million as of 2023, available to, as North Carolina complete the trails program. So that's a great way to bring money into the county, and to this project would be the beginning of that. Also, through this state trail, there's another pot of money called Connecting Communities to State Trails that makes grants to local communities to connect different parts of their communities to the state trail. So in addition to monies for the state trail, it'll bring in possibly money for this other, the Beacon Village to Grovestone Greenway. So to this point, Friends of Fontaflora has mostly been working in Burke and McDowell County with 30 miles completed there, and now they're ready to expand into Buncombe County. So this project is going to be really central to getting Fontaflora into this county, and I want to really stress how Buncombe County can count on Friends of Fontaflora State Trail to be an active and engaged partner in getting additional funding for this trail and this project in particular.
Rachel, are you there?
Yeah, I had to unmute. I'm Rachel Sudnick. I'm with Graybeard Realty and currently representing the Woodmen of the World as sellers for this property. I'm also a naturalist and have a background in environmental education. The Woodmen of the World property has been available for purchase since July of 2022. The price has been reduced significantly from $675,000 to its current list price of $425,000. It has been a very popular listing. The location is ideal. It's centrally located. It's level. There's tons of road and river frontage. I get calls about it on average once a week, and it's been under contract 6 times. It is proving to be a very difficult property to sell due to the flood hazard zone and the associated FEMA requirements, and building anything new there will be quite expensive. The property went under contract again on June 5th, and it is in the due diligence period. The due diligence period phase expires for this on July 5th. And usually if the buyer is going to back out, they do it before then because there's certain monies that they have on the table. They are scheduled to close on July 22nd. Megan, Julia, and I met with the buyer this past week to gauge interest in his partnership with the Woodman Trail. I wanted to read the last paragraph of his letter of support to show you his willingness to work with the county. Hold on, let me pull it up. The vision and master plan of this parcel has yet to begin. Therefore, at this time, the future plan and use of this property is undetermined. However, we're supportive of greenways and community connection, and we support the idea of a riverside greenway along the stretch of the Swannanoa River. If it aligns with the direction of the development. Assuming we close on this property, we would be interested and willing to participate in future conversations about the feasibility and details of the proposed greenway. Given this, we have several options to proceed forward, and I'm giving it back to Megan.
Hello again. So as Rachel described, we have a few options for how this project could move forward as far as the acquisitions are concerned. In scenario 1, the county would purchase the entire Woodman property, the easement behind the storage facility, and the Stewart land across the river. In scenario 2, instead of purchasing all of the land outright, the county would purchase an easement on Woodman, in addition to the storage easement and the portion of the Stewart property. And then in scenario 3, instead of acquiring any land on Woodman, the county would purchase a larger portion of the Stewart property across the river. in addition to the storage easement. I want to drive home the point that all three of these scenarios would acquire land or easements in a way that would allow the Fonta Flora to be built here and to cross the river here. The exact path that we take on the details will depend on the details of the Woodman closing, but the important takeaway is that roughly the same amount of money applied to three different paths forward accomplishes the same end goal of accommodating the Fonta Flora alignment. Given the three paths forward for acquisition, we also have some options for how the park improvements are provided. For paths 1 and 3, we're talking about building a park on both the county-owned land as well as significant additional acreage. That's why you see a higher number allocated to those scenarios. For the second path, we'd be building a park on the county-owned land and making improvements only immediately adjacent to the greenway alignment. So that's why you see a smaller cost associated with that. Every single path forward would involve crossing the Swannanoa River with a Greenway Bridge, so that same phase 3 cost would apply to each scenario.
Megan, I have to stop you. We've reached time, so we need to move into the question and answers phase.
Okay.
So I'm going to open the floor to the subcommittee members if you all have questions about the project.
Yeah. This is Bob. I just wanted to clarify. So the entity that's under contract, if that contract goes through, are you still able to buy this land, or are they saying they'd be interested in being receptive to it?
If that contract goes through, it sounds like they would be receptive to the greenway aspect of this project on their property. And so the project would pivot, and instead of necessarily focusing on a park on Woodman, we would focus on the greenway alignment on Woodman. And then the park focus would be primarily on the current county-owned properties. So there's a path forward regardless of how that contract works out. It's just that the exact programming on Woodman would be dependent.
Okay, and then the other question I had real quick is the state money for like those for the other Flora Trail. I didn't say it, Fonta Flora Trail. Is that happening anyway, or the money you're asking for is has to come from the bond, our bond?
The money that we're asking for the acquisitions is specific to the bond, but Julia could speak to the state trail money and what that could be applied for.
Okay.
Yeah, there is state trail money that is available to purchase land, but it has to be a matching grant. And as of now, that grant cycle has passed for this particular year. So it's pretty complex, but the people at Fonta Flora are really good at navigating what's possible, and they are gung-ho to get the Fonta Flora Trail through. So they'll be working hard to help Buncombe County financially in every way that they can, matching grants, whatever it takes.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Hey, this is Bob Turner. I have one question too. So the requested amount of 1.6 million, can you give us an idea what portion of that would go towards acquisition and what to improvements?
Yes. So the way that we're structuring our ask, about $500,000 would apply to acquisitions, and that's regardless of which scenario we choose. That same amount of money, around $500,000, would accomplish those goals. The remaining money in that pot would go to improvements in the bridges. And so what I have up on the screen is a breakdown of those tiers.
So the acquisition money then would be either for the actual purchase of the land, which would be $504,000, and then if it's already purchased, then the price of the easement would be how much?
So the $504,000 that you're looking at includes several items. Some of that is the purchase of the land, but some of it also includes the storage easement. It includes surveying costs, closing costs. And so there's several items in each of those baskets. Some of the items would change scenario to scenario, and some of them would stay the same.
This is Matt Fusco. What would be the construction timeline as far as the park itself?
So the park itself, we're showing the earliest that it could start would be fall of 2026. That hinges upon having grant money or money available to hire a design consultant. As I'm sure you're all aware, this bond money does not cover design fees. And so that would have to be fundraised for separately. So the timeline on construction of the park itself is dependent upon when hiring a consultant could begin.
So there are not completed construction design plans for the project at this current time?
That's correct. We have a schematic plan showing possibilities, and our budget is based off of allowances off of current projects, but it's not based off of design documents from a design firm.
Thank you.
Jill, we have time for time for one more question. So assuming that the land that's under contract that falls through, we would know that by the end of July, is that correct?
Right. They the beginning of July. Their due diligence period is up on July 5th. And so generally they try to tell us that. And I just
so my next question then, Rachel, is Jill, when are we making the decisions here on some of this money? Is that August 15th, maybe something like that?
Correct.
Mid-August.
The subcommittee will make its decision at your August meeting.
Okay, so we'll have more information before that decision is made on where this purchase is going.
Yes, that's the hope. Can I just throw one piece that we ran out of time to say? We are in a really unique space as far as the real estate market is concerned, that with this upcoming project in Beacon Village coming, the market values of these properties are on trend to go higher and higher and higher. So we are in a really unique time frame to acquire either the Woodman property or the property across the river with Mike Stewart, from people that care about Swannanoa as opposed to out-of-towners. So this is a really unique point in time for Buncombe County to seize this opportunity to help reserve this portion of the river for the community.
Thank you. So I'm gonna stop us there. We need to move on to the next presentation, but thank you, Fans Group, for your presentation.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Our next presenter is for the Gateway Park project. Just redoing the housekeeping again real quick. We're a little behind, so apologies, but you still have your full allotted time. And then just a clarification again that the staff that are present are here for support. They're not part of the voting subcommittee. So take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Lisa Raleigh, and I'm the Executive Director of Riverlink, and I am psyched to present on our new Gateway Park. Riverlink has a really rich 35-year history. I know a lot of you guys are super familiar with the organization. We follow the heels of some extraordinary women, Wilma, Jean, and Karen, our founder. And I think Karen's vision, contributions, and legacy just live throughout the region and will for generations to come. Riverlink's mission is unique, and it's got a dual mission. We promote both the environmental and economic vitality of the French Broad River and its watershed, and we do so for all. We have a real commitment to equity and inclusion. Riverlink is synonymous with greenways and riverfront parks. I think Buncombe County's riverfront and the River Arts District in particular really reflect our involvement. French Broad River Park, Carrier Park, Gene Webb Park, Karen Craig Nolan Park. These are all Riverlink projects and entities. And then we're also just delighted to be the nonprofit partner in Woodfin Greenway Blueway. Riverlink plays a unique role. We secure and improve these properties through donations and grants and fundraising, and then we make them an organizational priority and we develop them. And then we either give them to the community, like we have with some of these properties to the city of Asheville, or we continue to manage and operate them, like we are with Casey Park and will with Gateway. Riverlink properties lead the way in conservation and public recreation. We have a really proven track record in this space. We also have a dedicated land resources program that oversees, manages, and stewards all of our properties. The Gateway team, it will be comprised of me, Hannah, and Martha here at Riverlink. We are the dynamic trio that delivered Casey park across the finish line. We're governed by 15 amazing board members, and we are partnered with Equinox Environmental, a local landscape architect firm, and are working with the fabulous Megan Foy. In terms of the where, why, how of Gateway, it is located, excuse me, I got to move your gallery faces. It is located halfway between the north end of the River Arts District, so like White Duck Taco, and Woodfin Silverline Park. And we will be the only public green space in this pretty busy commercial industrial 2.5 mile corridor. The space itself, it's comprised of these 2 parcels. The only one that we're developing is this rectangular space. It's a little bit over an acre for public access, and it is bound by Norfolk Southern and Riverside Drive. Extraordinary reason for why now. There's this unbelievable convergence of opportunity that's headed up to the Northern Corridor. You've got 3 major bike and ped projects all leading by or to the site. With the I-26 connector, they are doing an improvement to Riverside Drive all the way from Broadway to Hill Street, and that includes multi-use protected lanes for bike and pedestrian. It runs right by the property. Then you've got Woodfin and their 5 miles of new greenway, which they're bringing down to Broadway. And then you have the city of Asheville, which are extending their Wilma Dykeman Greenway up to us, actually, and just across the street at Pearson Bridge. So all of these are fully underway and in various states, but they're all coming. The site's also got really amazing historic relevance. This is the general location of Asheville's original Riverside Park. And this was an incredibly iconic space. It had carousels, movies out on the river, boating activities. It had this really iconic merry-go-round. And then the flood of 1916, unfortunately, destroyed it all. In terms of Gateway's amenities, the property is currently heavily treed with sycamores, which is awesome. There's also a small grassy area, but a lot of challenges from invasives. So this project will lead with conservation and climate resilience like all of our projects do. It's very passive and natural in the design. It'll have meandering pathways, native plantings throughout. There'll be arched gateways at both entrances. We view this as a gateway property to kind of the north end of the greenways and the south end. Carousel-inspired pavilion, benches, artistic signage, and storytelling, much like you see at Casey Park. And there is a rendering that was included, super passive and natural. And the only infrastructure really will be a pavilion with that carousel roofline and the 2 gateways. In terms of the scope and work and milestone, it's a pretty tight project. We're already underway on the environmental assessment and sampling. We look to complete the design and permitting this fall, mobilize over the winter, start the site prep and construction in the spring. The structures are minimal. The hard surfaces and trails will be built. Lots of plantings, trees and shrubs. And then we look to complete the construction by next summer and be open this time next year. Project budget, it's a pretty tight, lean, mean project at $615,000. That does include a 20% project contingency on all hard costs. And we've also included any environmental related mitigation. So we feel pretty good about the budget, and we're psyched to work with Equinox to keep it within the budget. So once again, the total project is $615. The passive rec eligible component is $466. We're here today asking for $200,000. We do have other funders in the mix. That includes a private donation, and it also includes just the recent award of the TDA Lift Grant. Connect Buncombe is also committed, and as is Buncombe County Strategic Partnerships with a grant towards the invasives. So the only nuance in this funding mix is when we first learned about the passive rec bond opportunity, that's when we decided to move forward on Gateway, because we always imagined we'd have 3 key funders that made this park possible. We'd have a private donor at $200,000. We would ask passive rec for $200,000, and we would ask the TDA through their TPDF to close it at $200,000. But then the TDA announced the LIFT fund, and this project was perfect for LIFT, and LIFT came first. But to be eligible for LIFT, you need to have a 50% match identified. So we asked the donor to go from $200,000 to $300,000 so we could be competitive in LIFT. We were competitive, we got our award, but we also let the TDA know that we were going to ask you guys for $200,000 so that we could reset all 3 funders. The donor at $200,000, the TDA at $200,000, and you guys at $200,000. That extra $100,000 from the donor could be invested in other projects throughout the watershed. And we feel really strongly that a private donor should not carry the majority of funding on a public community asset, particularly when there's public funds out there for building such an asset. In terms of the conservation impact, this property leads with conservation. We are currently in a highly commercial industrial corridor. We have the former city of Asheville landfill just to the south. We've got an invasive issue that needs to be dealt with. The good news is we have the Norfolk Southern berm right there, which is a great flood barrier. All of the improvements will enhance climate resilience and keeping our water on site. We get to protect and enhance the sycamore forest. We'll introduce native species and pollinators, and we'll be able to create a beautiful respite for wildlife and people alike. We're also big fans of community impact. River parks offer unique value. They're great for community members. They're great for visitors. This one's designed exclusively for passive rec for bikers and pedestrian. There's no parking. City of Asheville has an access point across the bridge, river access and parking. We believe this emerging northern corridor needs some attention. It is strategically located between two of the region's largest investments, Rad Tip and the future Woodfin Greenway Blueway amenities. This will be a destination that is welcoming for all. We think we're in direct alignment with all of your pillars. We're giving ourselves 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 across the board. This project is right in the crosshairs of everything you guys are looking for. Why invest in this project? Riverlink is a reliable and proven partner. We have a really long history in this space. We balance conservation and public access. We're capable stewards of these public amenities. We will manage this property beautifully. The timing is perfect. The northern corridor needs attention because it is coming. City of Asheville and Buncombe County Parks and Rec both strongly support the project and have written letters of support accordingly. And we believe the return on investment is significant. Lastly, we are shovel ready. You guys complete our funding. We'll immediately move into final design docs. We'll begin construction later this year. We have all of our project management in place. We will open it the middle of next year, and we will steward it and maintain it forever. Did I make it under 10? All right, awesome.
Yes, you did. So we can open for questions from the committee. Thank you.
Lisa?
Yes.
Is there any way that you can access the river from the property?
We've intentionally, that's a beautiful question. Thank you. We've intentionally chosen not to. The city has river access that Riverlink was actually part of years ago, right across the street. We've got the railroad there, and we are actually leaning heavily into our riparian zone. We just got grant funds to reinforce the riparian zone at Gateway. We want that to be a natural conserved space that is part of the flooding solution and not to invite public access down to the river since it is accessible right across the street.
Okay.
But great question.
This is Matt Fusco. I noticed that you got the right of way for the railroad on one side of you, and then would be future improvements of Riverside for I-26. Could you tell us how those would impact the park and whether or not you have had conversations with the railroad to be able to make improvements within their right of way, and or looked at how the development of Riverside will impact that?
Yeah, so one of the first things Equinox does, and that's what's beautiful about working with them, is they look into all the right-of-ways. We're going to do all of the improvements outside of the railroad right-of-way, and we'll sign that and post that. And then Riverside Drive is interesting. There's a sliver of eminent domain coming, but we already know about that, and we're designing around that. So that's the beauty with Equinox is, you know, they interface on all of the right-of-ways because we keep building these urban parks, and you are speaking to all the wonderful, robust challenges of them is the number of right-of-ways coming through. So yeah, we'll kind of sit between both of those. And it's a linear park, right? Which is beautiful because that multimodal lane is going to come right by our side of the property. And it's truly just to create a respite for all of those people that ultimately are going to be going up and down that corridor, particularly when WGB is completed.
And so does that graphic represent that they're not be working within those two areas?
Yeah, hang on a second. Sorry. Let me see if I can get us back up there quickly.
There you go.
Yep. Those are trees, those circles that are kind of in the Norfolk Southern right of way are just tree clumps, if you will.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Do we have time for one more question, Joe? So Lisa, great presentation. Thank you for being a minute under your time.
Nice to see you again. I just actually met you the other night. Yeah.
Nice to see you. So as you may know, we have more funding requests than we have money, right? If it were, and I'm not saying this would happen, but if we were to fall short on your full request, and let's just say a number of 100,000, whatever, do you think that your funder, God bless him or her for doing it, private donor, would be able to step up and fill a gap? Is that still open conversation?
Yeah, and the funder at 300,000 is kind of filling that gap. And my goal is to set that number back as far as we can. So yeah, if you guys come in with 100, that lets us take some of the pressure off of that funder, but they're still going to carry a bulk of this. And I guess I just keep coming back to, like Riverlink lately, we are building public amenities and we're owning them and operating them in partnership with the county and the city. And so I'm like, because this fund exists, I so hope we can find a way to justify it as an equal partner to the donor. Because that's a huge investment from a private individual and a nonprofit that's saying, hey, we'll run and operate this park forever if that's what we need to do.
Yeah, that's great.
How does Riverlink manage that? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, great question. We design them so that we can manage them. We are an accredited land trust, so we have to run a land program here, and we have a really thoughtful land program. So Casey Park and Gateway are designed exactly to fit in our world of management to ensure we can always do that. We're also open. If the county called one day and said, we'd like to take this park, we would love to have that conversation, or a recreation easement, anything like that. But it's in our DNA to do this, and we build them to make sure we can do it.
Well, does that mean that there will be an endowment for that parcel of some sort, or how does that hit the ground?
We have others. I don't think there'll be a specific endowment. We actually have a fairly large land endowment, but that's more for defense purposes. But it's just like Casey Park. We're building it to ensure this organization can continue to manage. Casey Park was a much larger investment, but we're building them to the organization's capabilities, and we'll always hold a land program here. So we feel pretty good about it because being a land trust.
Lisa, you've done a great job leveraging funds, which is really important. Thank you for that, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I don't think anyone has joined since my last housekeeping announcement. So with that, I can ask the next presenter to join, which is Warren Wilson College.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hi, all. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. Let me share my screen. I'm Dave Ellum. I'm the Dean of Land Resources and the Director of the Center for Working Lands here at Warren Wilson College. Thanks for having me today. What I want to talk about a little bit, and I'm going to try and get you guys back on schedule because this is pretty simple, so I'll go pretty quick. What I'm looking at today is funding to improve our trail system on the Warren Wilson lands. Lots of you probably know Warren Wilson. We've been managing this land for over 100 years right now. We're also humble enough to know that there were people that came here before us and there will be people after us, and we're trying to be good stewards of our land. The campus lands are open to the public. They've been open to the public for about the last 40 years. And to the best of my knowledge, at least since I've been here in the last close to 20 years, we've never asked for county, state, or federal funding to manage our lands. We have 17 miles of trails. That includes our fire roads, our logging roads, our forest roads, and our farm roads, and single track trails, all of the passive recreation activities. We also do a lot of education on our land, guided hikes, workshops, demonstrations, lectures, that type of thing. As far as capacity to oversee this work, we have a management team comprised of myself. I'm actually a dirt forester, 5 land managers, an assistant manager, and we're proud to say that 137 of the 750 students that live on campus work on our land operations. I have to show off some of our student work, as this is a trail improvement grant we're looking for. This is actually a trail that was just built by one of our bridge that was just built by one of our undergraduate students across a tributary that goes into the Swannanoa River that was getting washed out, rock retaining wall and bridge work. This was all done by students on the forestry crew. So here's the budget we're looking at. we're looking at 141,000 for to bring in a contractor and to put in some interpretive signage and also some equipment to manage post improvements. What I mean by post improvements are we have those 17 miles of trails. I'll show you some of the upgrades we're looking at doing. We really need a reset. To reset, we do not have the equipment and the skills really to reset the trails back to where they need to be, especially the roads. So what we're looking at is to bring in someone to reset those trails. And then we do have the skills and the management equipment, as far as hand equipment goes, to manage those trails for the next 10 to 15 years before they need to be upgraded again. In kind, we're looking at most of this work being done post improvements by our management team and by the students. And so those fundings come from federal work dollars and the college budget. So we're a federally recognized work college, so we get some funds to pay the students, although all of the managers and myself are not paid through that. We're paid through the operating costs. We have 17 miles of trails. These are the trails here. If you look at the red trails, those are managed by the forest. Those are single track and double track trails throughout campus. And then if you look at the yellow trails, those are the farm roads that are often used by dog walkers and especially the Audubon Society, which we have a letter of support for. I got here over the spring and I saw about 40 people down at our garden, and it turns out we had a Harris sparrow down there. So that was big news. So we had a lot of Audubon folks in North Carolina Birding Society. 2 years ago, it was a Dixell down there that brought everybody in. So we have lots of folks coming. Last year, we did an informal study of the river trail, which is this trail here. And I put a student out there for 12 hours on a Saturday in July, and we got about 147 users during that 12-hour period. So the river trail is pretty iconic and gets used by a lot of folks. This is, just want to run through a couple of the trails and some of the work that needs to be done. This is our farm loop, which is really used by dog walkers and by birders. This little area right here is where it connects to Owen Park trails. This is the river trail. As you can see, there's some places here that need to be fixed. This is why we need the grading equipment in here. This is the river trail, which again is an iconic trail used by lots of people, Swannanoa, Asheville, and the county. As you can see, for some water quality, we need to take some of these trails off of the river and pull them back. This is Jones Mountain. This is an example of some of the double track trail through our forest compartments. And as you can see, we need some new water bars. Those need to be graded out, and we could put some new water bars in there. So again, I can't stress this is not to acquire any new land, nor is it to acquire any new trails. It's to rehab the trails that we have so we can set them back to a place where they're easier to use and our student crews can manage them. Last, I just want to go through some of the priorities that you all have. Conservation, you probably all know that we have the 600-acre conservation easement coming in. So we expect to have even more people on campus once that conservation easement is promoted and advertised. So we'll have a lot more people coming to campus. Water quality issues we'll be addressing in the Swannanoa River and its tributaries. The feasibility side of things, we have the proven skills and we already have the established trails. We just want a little bit of help bringing them back up to specs for the community members of the county. Access, we get a lot of use from the Swannanoa community. We have 2 affordable housing areas close to us, apartments, the Jasper and the East Haven apartments. We have lots of ample parking, either at Owen Park or our trailheads. Equity, one piece from the equity point of view is the Pisgah Village Trail. We have Dave Moore identified the 4,000-year-old Pisgah community that's down there, and one of the trails runs by that. We also have the Indigenous Student Association, which is looking to put in interpretive trails, interpretive signage around some of our natural history, relating it back to Indigenous knowledge. Long-term management, we've been managing these trails for over 40 years. We have an established forestry program and an established outdoor leadership program that can help with that work. Again, we're leveraging costs. I've already talked about that. Our student workers, and on the student workers, I want to bring up the point too, that the students aren't just doing this work. The students are learning how to do this work. So it's an educational opportunity. The woman who just graduated, who built that bridge with student help, she just got hired by the Forest Service as a permanent trail and bridge builder out in Washington State. Alignment with county priorities. I see three 2043 comprehensive plan priorities that we hit. That's forest, farms, and environmental conservation, health and recreation, and then growth, equity, and conservation. And again, the greenway system. And then safety is a big deal. We have public safety officers on hand 24/7. We have high management visibility, so there's always folks out on these trails. And then we're about to get Bearwise certification. So we do a lot of education around Bearwise for folks on the trails. So that's it. That's where I want to leave this. Again, this is not for new trails. This is not for new land. This is asking the county for some assistance in upgrading the trails that we've had open to the community for the last 40 years. And with that, I'll save you a minute and a half and take any questions you have.
Thank you, David. I have one. This is Bob Turner again. I was fortunate enough through my work with LCAB to visit the property and got a tour, and it is absolutely spectacular. If you haven't been out to Warren Wilson in a while, and the fact that Warren Wilson is in the middle of putting together this conservation easement for 600 acres is incredible. And this plays a big part in that, building up these trails, because I do believe, the traffic will be increased there once people are aware of the opportunity. It's just an amazing piece of property. And thank you for pushing that through, David. I think it's huge for the county.
It's been a mission for 17 years. Any other questions I can help with?
I don't have a question. I'll just chip in. I've known David ever since he came here, I guess from Yale, but he's an excellent forester, and I've been a forest ecologist. I have great respect for his knowledge and his abilities to see things through, and he's certainly inspired students over the last couple decades. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Quick question. I appreciate what Warren Wilson does and allows people to do on the property, because it really is a beautiful site. Are any of these trails going to be part of the Fonta Flora Trail?
That's a great question. I've had a lot of conversation with folks, the Black Mountain Greenway, the Fonta Flora, the River Trail. We have 2.5 miles of the Swannanoa River. And so folks have been talking about using our river trail as part of any greenway that connects Black Mountain to Asheville. And we are open to that.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys are too easy.
Are there any, we still have time for more questions if y'all have any additional questions.
This is Matt Fusco. I just have one question. From the standpoint, you mentioned access in your in the application form, and I believe there were a couple of public parks. Do you have a handle on, say, what your number of parking or what the accessible parking areas might be on the Warren Wilson campus and not necessarily off-site?
Yeah. So we had 3 parking areas at Warren Wilson for our trails. One of them, some of you might have seen, was right along Warren Wilson Road. That held about 8 cars, but we closed that because the cars were only about 6 inches off the road and people were letting dogs and kids out. We were really worried about that. Plus, once I did a little look into re-engineering it, it's also half of it's in the 100-year wetlands, so we closed that. At the Jones Mountain Trailhead, we have parking for about 10 cars. And then down at the Berea Trailhead across from the Berea Church, we have parking for about 15 cars. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, folks are welcome to park on campus at our parking lots, which are fine with us. It does get a little tight during the school year when the students are on campus and professors are here, and that's when we ask people to mostly park over at Owen Park. So,
thank you.
Yep. Thank you all. And the last thing I'll say is if any of you want to come out and see what we're up to, I love showing this place off.
Thanks, David.
Great.
All right, so with that, our next presentation is for Riverside Park. Oh, and again, just the housekeeping. You still have your full amount of time, and then the staff here are just for support and expertise. The subcommittee makes the decisions. Go ahead.
All right, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, you're coming in good. Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much for inviting us to present today. My name is Shannon Tuck. I am the town manager for the town of Woodfin, and I'll be leading you through the presentation today. But I'm joined by other team members, including Eric Hardy and Mark Hunt and Lisa Raleigh, who you heard from earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. In looking at the organizational details and highlighting our relevant experience, I think the main thing I want to emphasize is that we are a town. We are a municipality, we're a local government, and we're responsible for a variety of capital projects with contract administration to serve our residents. So it is a matter of somewhat routine business for us to manage various contracts. A few of our larger contracts in more recent years have included the completion of the Silver Line Park in 2022, some infrastructure projects, including street reconstruction and resurfacing and stormwater. We are in the early stages of a town hall redevelopment project, completing a feasibility study this last year. And we do a whole lot of facilities and park maintenance. Something else I'd like to emphasize is that as a small municipality with a limited budget, we are always looking at grants, and we are very familiar with grant administration and reporting as well. Our capacity to manage the project begins with our town team. We have a dedicated project manager on staff. We have a very professional finance officer with many years of experience. We also have a consulting partner with Eric Hardy, who also comes from with a finance background. But both or all three have significant experience with construction and project management. And then rounding out that team, we have our contractors, our lead contractors, Equinox Environmental, a local firm with over 24 years of regional experience with similar park projects, including just general recreation parks, as well as greenways and innovative stormwater design. And then we have our subcontractor, S2O, who works with Equinox on the design of the aquatic bypass. And they have over 45 successful in-river projects in the US and abroad. So given the unique nature of this project, I don't know that we could have built a better team. So we feel very strong. In addition to our design professionals, we are also happy to have Baker Grading and Landscaping as our contractor. I know most of these applications, or maybe all the applications, are not to the point where they have a contractor, and we are in a unique position to have a contractor on board, and I'll explain that a little bit further. And of course, we would not be here today without our funding partners. Explore Asheville, TDA, came through in a big way in 2022 and 2018 with a significant grant for this project. The Woodfin taxpayers provided the seed money through general obligation bonds back in 2016. And we have, over the last 8 years, cobbled together a variety of funding sources with a number of different grants from state and federal partners, as well as local nonprofits, ranging from $500,000 all the way down to $35,000. This, combined with private donations and in-kind donations, has really put us on a good path for fundraising. Going over some of the project details, I think it's important to reflect on the context of Riverside Park improvement. It is part of the larger Woodfin Greenway and Blueway initiative that you heard referenced earlier. That is a large $34 million outdoor recreation project, but it includes 4 components: Silverline Park that I mentioned earlier, Riverside Park expansion, and the Whitewater Wave. You may have heard that in the news recently. That is currently under contract. Riverside Park improvement, which is the subject of this application, and separate and distinct from Riverside Park expansion. So that's an important point that I want to emphasize. And then rounding out WGB are the 2 greenways, Riverside Drive and Beaver Dam Creek. So this map illustrates the whole of WGB. You see the greenways dashed. Silverline Park is that lower circle. The circle on the left is Riverside, Riverside Park. And I don't know why, but that red circle has shifted in the slide. And what I wanted to draw your attention to is there's 2 separate circles within that larger red circle. And that represents Riverside Park expansion and Riverside Park improvement, 2 separate projects. So looking at the master plan, you can also understand why these 2 projects get conflated. We did 1 master plan for the whole linear park, but they are 2 separate projects. So the area on the left is the expansion project, which includes the Whitewater Wave that you see in the French Broad River, as well as all of those park amenities that are really designed to support the wave. So this is the active recreation side of the park project, or the whole master plan. But there is a pretty marked transition as you move along the greenway through the project. You cross through a constructed wetland, over a pedestrian bridge, and you're in a very different environment as you move into the area that's outlined in blue. That's the Riverside Park improvement. And you can see this is a passive recreation park dominated by trails and picnic facilities. If we zoom in on that master plan, you can see some of the project components a little bit more closely. What's not represented in the plan is the extent of grading that is involved in this project. We have significant flooding in this part of the park today, or this town property area. The grading would address those flooding issues by enhancing the existing greenways and adding new constructed wetlands and bioswales. We would also rebuild and expand the parking lot, and we would add some trailer parking. You can see that on the lower right-hand side of the screen. This is a popular fishing spot for our local community, and so we wanted to be able to add at least a few trailer parking spaces where people could pull in with small watercraft to be able to access the river. We would also seek to replace the restrooms. The existing restrooms are the only public restroom facilities north of the RAD right now. And we think with the Greenway construction, that would be critical to have year-round restrooms. These are seasonal restrooms that are also in pretty bad shape. So we're seeking to replace those. The Greenway. The Greenway is not the part of the Greenway, the half mile or so that's inside the park boundary, is not part of the larger Greenway project. So whatever is included in the park boundary is actually part of the park project. It would, of course, connect to the larger Greenway project, but it is part of the park plan, and currently it is unfunded. We would also include additional walking trails, natural and paved. There is, let's see, my cursor, you can't see it, but the Greenway is the 10-foot wide Greenway is kind of the spine. And then you have secondary and tertiary paths that are paved and unpaved. Secondary ones are paved, the tertiary ones are unpaved natural surfaces. So if you're a dog walker and you want to avoid some of the activity on the Greenway, you'll be able to do that in this park. We also are seeking to replace the picnic shelter and improve river access. We have 2 river access points, one for the small craft coming off of the parking lot, and then one further south or to the left of the screen that is a boulder kind of step down. So that would be where you would go to just sort of dip your toes in the water. Also included in our application is the wave bypass channel. So it is not really part of the wave structure. It's attached to the structure, it's integral, but it is, the wave structure is what creates that energy, that rolling wave that people can surf on or kayakers can do tricks on. But the bypass channel is the exact opposite. It is smooth, It is slow moving, and it's where people like the folks who are tubing down the river or that small craft that isn't prepared to go over the wave would be able to bypass all of that energy. So we think from a passive recreation standpoint, enjoying the river just quietly to float down, this is a critical component. It's also critical to wildlife passage. Here you can see the improvement park project on, in the aerial. I had really included this to try to demonstrate how wooded it is and how comfortable it is, but doesn't come through particularly well on this aerial image, so I'll just move on. But the area on the left, to the left of the outline in blue, is the expansion park, and of course the blue is the improvement park. So here are some images from Riverside Park today. As you can see, it's a very treed site. It's got good canopy. Understory is clear, so you have good visibility in the understory, and it's dominated again by those walking trails and picnic facilities. So it is an existing community park today. However, it is an existing community park really in need of improvement. So I mentioned earlier, we have some significant flooding issues. Those floods always deposit silt and sediment on the trails, making them hazardous. They become very slippery. Also, all of our park amenities today are wood. And whether from the flooding or the age or a combination of the two, they're all deteriorating. That fence is not in the shape that it is in because of neglect. It is purely just, it's rotted and it's deteriorated and we can't repair it. So, and a lot of our picnic tables are kind of wonky, they're sloping, and it's because all of it is settling and deteriorating. Here you can see a couple images of our restroom facilities. Again, this is a seasonal restroom we'd like to make year round. It's dated, it's not in the best condition. The picnic shelter similarly starting to deteriorate, and you can see some of the erosion that's occurring on our riverbanks. The project timeline, I mentioned earlier that Riverside Park expansion is currently under contract. That's about an 18-month time frame. And we had a unique opportunity with Riverside Park expansion to design the construction bid and the contract to include what we're calling options. And those options can be added back into the contract as funding becomes available. So we have real construction numbers, a real construction bid for those options, and we would just simply amend the contract to add them back in. The project is also completely permitted. So this is how we are able, like we are truly shovel ready, like we are literally shovel ready. We have real construction numbers, we have a contract, we have a contractor on board, and we have all of our permits in hand. If we are able to obtain funding for this project, it would add approximately 6 months to the timeline, pushing us into 2026. We could potentially condense this if we are able to secure funding early in the construction process. Our contractor thinks that he can kind of condense this by being able to kind of reassess construction staging and do some additional work on shore while work in the river is occurring at the same time. Budget. Our original passive recreation fund request was 3.37 million. That comes from those late March construction bids. The timing of those bids with the deadline for the passive recreation grant didn't give us a ton of time to really chew on those line items to determine whether or not there were any cost savings that could be realized in either park project. And it turns out, now that we've had some time, we do think we can reduce the expansion park project by $356,000. We would like to shift that funding to the park improvement project, which would reduce our passive recreation ask by $356,000 down to just over $3 million. That project budget would also include 10% contingency and construction administration, which would improve the success of the project being delivered on time and within budget. So in looking at project impact, we would agree conservation and community impact are the highest priorities, and we think that we're very strong on both fronts. From a conservation perspective, we have innovative stormwater, including bioswales and constructed wetland, that when combined with the enhanced existing wetlands, would significantly increase flood storage, resolving our flooding issues. It would provide habitat for local wildlife and improve water quality as that water gets filtered before it's discharged back into the river. We also have riverbank stabilization, invasive plant removal with native plantings going in its place, the aquatic bypass, of course. Not only does it allow for that slow-moving watercraft, but also accommodates 31 different species of fish and other riverine species. And we also, our design accommodates the endangered species, including Appalachian elk-toe and the gray bat. Community impact, this is a passive recreation park, so it primarily provides outdoor gathering spaces for families and other groups, including low-income and minority groups. We have extensive walking trails and seating and picnic tables for that sort of quiet outdoor time. Provides a safe environment. It's fully ADA accessible. It would include interpretive signage, supporting an outdoor learning environment. It would build on the multimodal transportation network by building the Greenway. And it would promote environmental stewardship. This is one thing I'm particularly excited about. Woodfin has really turned a corner. Its roots were in manufacturing, and its relationship with the French Broad River historically was more exploitive, and now we're becoming stewards of the river. And this project just pushes us further along that path. And of course, it supports riverfront redevelopment and economic development.
Thanks, Sharon. Sorry,
alignment with evaluation criteria. I've already, Jill, are you talking?
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna pause you. We've run on time, so I want to make sure you have time to answer any questions as well.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Can I just wrap up by saying we've evaluated the evaluation criteria and we feel like we're really strong and we've ticked a lot of those boxes, but I'll wrap up there and be happy to answer any questions.
This is Matt Fusco. I have a question about the management. So obviously it's a pretty big task as far as the wave and the park improvements, but since there's an existing park, what do you see as the change in the management load as far as from the town of Woodfin? And, you know, obviously it's not going to be, well, I don't know whether it'll be 100% increase or a 50, and how is that going to be accounted for? If you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
So of course, this is a public park and it will be supported by the town's general fund. We have a 5-year budget that does look at growing a small parks department. So we are looking to add a full-time maintenance employee beginning in fiscal year 26. We also are developing a park ambassador program that would put some additional eyes on the park to kind of help monitor the condition. We also have a standing Parks and Greenways Advisory Committee that oversees park needs and makes recommendations to the town. So we feel like we are in a good position to manage the park, and but do anticipate devoting additional resources to this in the future.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to chime in as well. This is Kevin Conricode. One of our biggest concerns is overall budget we have to allocate out. So I was curious on this project in particular. It looks like your ask has been reduced by about 10%. What would a further $500,000 reduction in your ask impact these plans?
So when we designed our construction bid, we put the additional park elements for Riverside Park improvement. We designed it or broken up into 4 different, what we call options. And really, it's primarily 3 options that address Riverside Park improvement. So those options can be added back in as funding is available. So if we were not fully funded, we would just amend the contract to include as much of the options as we could, maybe leaving out that last option until we could secure additional funding.
Hey, this is Bob Turner. I have a question related to the spend here. So can you give us an idea what portion of the fund request would go toward the wave bypass? Is that a big chunk of the total budget, or what?
It is a sizable chunk. I might have to rely on Eric Hardy to answer that question. I apologize. I don't know the number off the top of my head, and I should have had that. I think it's in the...
We're just trying to get an idea of like a portion for that versus some of the other projects, that the stormwater in the bathrooms, that kind of thing. So
Sure.
is that a big nut generally, do you think, the bypass part of it?
It represents about 20% of the wave cost, and so that would come in around $700,000 for the bypass portion of that, the wave structure itself, the in-river structure.
We have time for a couple more questions.
What I saw something in the news about the wave. Is pretty interesting. You're anticipating hundreds of users for that facility, for that wave structure. Is it 100 a month, 1,000 a month? Do you have any kind of idea on expected numbers of citizens that would participate in that?
Well, I think, I mean, we are expecting a lot of interest. I don't know if we know those exact numbers. We do anticipate that use of the wave will grow over time as word kind of gets out. So I imagine like how it appears in that first year is going to be different than how it appears in year 3. There's also a plan to try to build events around use of the wave. And so that could also spur some additional visibility and interest and bring in more people. Some of those visitor numbers are a little bit confusing because sometimes it refers to visitors to the whole park, which would include greenway users. You know, so we had to provide some numbers for the TDA application about visitors to the park, but that includes greenway users as well. And so in terms of people specifically for the wave, I don't know that we can speculate an exact number right now. Mark Hunt is available. I don't know if he has more he wants to share on that.
We, in our application to TDA, we described something in the neighborhood of 120,000 people per year dispersed over the entire year coming just for the wave. That would include both users and spectators. And the wave doesn't have huge capacity to handle dozens of surfers at any moment. People take turns, so it kind of self-regulates that way. The Greenway probably is going to generate much more volume in terms of visits to the park.
Can I ask you a question about the Greenway, Mark? I think Shannon said that it is not funded at this point. The paved Greenway going through the park is not funded. What are your plans for trying to get that developed or paved?
I'll let Shannon address that.
So the Riverside Park expansion piece, that project that's under contract includes grading for the Greenway. But right now we don't have any funding or very little funding for Riverside Park improvement. So extending the Greenway through the improvement portion of the park, that is currently unfunded. Truth be told, in looking at the whole project, that is a smaller dollar item for, compared to the larger projects. So it is one of the higher priorities. So if we are unsuccessful in our funding, we could probably scale back and at least complete the Greenway.
So you're going to be grading it, but not paving.
And the expansion side, correct. On the improvement side, which is the subject of this application, we don't have any funds for the Greenway right now.
Well, thank you, Shannon and the Riverside Park team. We will move on to our last presentation of the day, which is the Hominy Creek Greenway.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks, Mark.
Y'all, I hope you're able to see my screen.
Yes. We can see.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Jack Eigelman, and I am a volunteer trustee of the Friends of Hominy Creek Greenway. Jake McLean is also joining me. He's a partner of our organization, and he's an engineer with Wildlands Engineering. So he'll be around for the Q&A. Regarding our project, we are requesting funds for a trail restoration project and an ecological restoration project. Before I go into details of that, I wanted to share sort of a regional vision. You all have heard from the other side of the county and our other major waterway, the Swannanoa River. I want to talk a little bit about some just cool visioning and exciting opportunities on the Hominy Creek Greenway, or along Hominy Creek, pardon me. The Hominy Creek Greenway is up here in the top right. We're a 14-acre city park. And there are some really exciting developments in which the Greenway can be a hub, a connector to the Inca Heritage Trail, to the French Broad Greenway, to Bent Creek. And also I'm excited about bringing attention to Hominy Creek, the waterway itself, and getting people near the waterway, getting excited about it, and helping conserve it. So I just wanted to mention the bigger picture. If you're not familiar with the Hominy Creek Greenway, which is in West Asheville, the city purchased the land in 2011. And shortly after, a group of community members, including myself, formed a steering committee. We incorporated and became the Friends of Hominy Creek Greenway. So we've been in existence for over a decade. Early on in 2012, we signed a stewardship agreement with the city of Asheville, and we have continued to have a really strong relationship with the city. So the city provides some services such as lawn mowing, trash collection at our two trailheads. The Friends of Hominy Creek Greenway have taken on much of the role of stewards. And we recently did some strategic planning. Here's our revised mission. And also, I want to point out that we are a 7-member volunteer friends group. But I served and started as president for the first 6 years. I stepped off for 4 years. I've been back on the board for the last 2 years as a trustee. And in my experience, the Friends are at its strongest capacity in our history. So that's something that I'm excited about. So our project proposal is seeking funds to complete a natural surface restoration, reconstruction of our main path through the Greenway. And if any of you all have been on the Greenway, it is really a city park. It's a 14-acre parkland, which we have been attempting to restore ecologically over the last decade plus. A 0.7-mile trail connects our two trailheads. And over the past 4 years, we have rehabilitated 0.3 miles of that trail. We have a 0.4-mile gap. We're also seeking funds for an ecological restoration project over time. We have done a fantastic job of leveraging our volunteer labor, as well as some help from the city to deal with the non-native invasive species issue that exists in many of our city parks, in particular this one. We also will have some additional funding costs related to design and administrative fees. So this is an overview of the Hominy Greenway. Actually, the Greenway is this long, narrow section that runs along the Hominy Creek Greenway and is bordered by numerous properties. The Greenway 13 years ago, was a tract of forest land in which the MSD kept access open so they can maintain the sewer line. Community members began to use it at that time, and eventually when the city purchased it, we attempted to do what we could to maintain the legacy trail that existed there. So over the past 4 years, we've done 2 major trail projects. One we've just completed. Those are at both ends of the Greenway on the Sand Hill access side and the Shelburne area access side. So phase 1 and phase 2 are complete. And we're requesting funds to complete the 3rd phase, which would connect those 2 areas. We initially focused on the trailheads so we can improve access to get people on the Greenway. So we want to give you a look at the work that we have completed, one, to demonstrate the capacity of our Friends volunteer group, but also to demonstrate the need so people can access this park. On the left is a before image of our first trail project on the Shelburne Road area. And over time, the Greenway, which is heavily used by bikes and walkers, has eroded significantly. So after heavy rainfalls, you can see these areas that collect water. Not only do they make it impassable, but what we were noticing is that new trails would form on either end, having an ecological impact. So on the right is an after photo. The desire of the community, the desire of our board has been to maintain a natural surface trail. So we widened the trail. We created swales through Jake's design to keep water off. You can see another image here of what the trail looked like before and on the right after. And we think the trail work improved, really helped us deal with the flooding and erosion issue. It made it more universally accessible, which we think is something important. We made it safer. We also think we potentially improved water quality and habitat by dealing with the sedimentation that came off of the creek. Phase 2 is completed, another demonstration of our capacity and our work on the Sand Hill trailhead. And again, the same problem existed along the sewer line, which is puddling and erosion. And we engaged with a similar design, although the geography was a little bit different. The other exciting thing about this project is we attempted to leverage funds, and I do want to point out that the Friends raised over $50,000 for phase 2. We did that through all volunteer work. We had a grant, a partial grant from the city, but we also used funds from grants from Buncombe County, Connect Buncombe, and we also leveraged funds from the Pigeon River Fund to complete stream bank restoration. The Sand Hill Trail begins along Buttermilk Creek, which is what you're seeing in these 2 images, and significant stormwater erosion required that we deal with the stream bank. And you can see on the right, we reshaped the stream bank. We did a massive live stake planting, which has been successful. So some other images of phase 2. So our phase 3 goals are to complete the 4 miles of trail that remain, to improve safety, to deal with erosion, improve water quality. We've also found, and this is the other part of our request, is that when we're doing trail work, as we have equipment in, we also have an opportunity to do some significant ecological restoration, including non-native species removal and new plantings. And so we've partnered with eco-foresters, an Asheville nonprofit, to do some of this work. And so we're requesting funds to create a 5-year plan where we can leverage our volunteers, but also work with a professional organization year after year to not only tame some areas where the non-native plants are significant, but to also have a plan to maintain it. So we're really hopeful that we can continue to create what we think is one of the most extraordinary urban public green spaces in Buncombe County. Again, I also mentioned the capacity of a voluntary organization, which I'm really super proud of. There are also some other great opportunities, as I mentioned at the beginning of the slideshow, to connect to, say, the Inca Heritage Trail. You're looking at an image of the unofficial Possum Park, which is the old 191 bridge, which there's significant conversations around connecting that to the Hominy Creek Greenway, potentially to the Farmers Market and to Bent Creek. So there are really some exciting connectivity possibilities to make the Hominy Creek Greenway more accessible to the community at large. So y'all, thanks for the opportunity to present. I'm really grateful and looking forward to your questions.
Open it up to the subcommittee for any questions y'all might have.
I don't really have any really, Jack, but do you have a timeline, general timeline for your project if it's funded?
Yeah, Bob, we have begun the process of raising funds for design. We've talked with the TDA to be able to apply for LIFT. We've talked to the Pigeon River Fund. We'd like 6 to 12 months to be able to raise the design funds and then begin the design process. So we're hopeful that the project can begin in 12 to 18 months, depending on, completing the design, accessing permits, securing a contractor for the work.
Could you tell us a little, this is Matt Fusco, could you tell us a little bit more about this condemnation and what the prospect or timeline might be for that and why it's gotten to the point of condemnation rather than something that could be worked out with the landowner?
Yeah, I will say I could give you a quick overview of what's happened there. And the negotiations have been between the property owners, the city of Asheville, and the property owner. We've tried to keep a distance from the negotiations. Two properties at the 12 years ago, there were two properties that extended all the way down to the Hominy Creek Greenway. 12 years ago, one of those properties, the homeowner granted an easement. The other property, the owner was not willing to grant an easement. 4 years ago, that property was sold. And since then, the property owner has built a home. They reached out to the Friends and the city with concerns that they had about a greenway existing adjacent to their property, including trespassing, mowing some of the plants that were on the property, other things. The Friends have listened to those concerns and have tried to rectify them. 2 summers ago, the property owner sent a cease and desist order to the city and Friends to close the greenway. That, I think, alarmed the city in that the public would lose access to using the greenway from one end to the other. From that point, the city and the property owner negotiated to seek an easement. They were unable to come to an agreement. And last March, the Asheville City Council voted to condemn that land. And that process is ongoing. I recently, last week, checked in with the city of Asheville's legal department and didn't get a response. So we anticipate that the process will work its way through the courts and will hopefully be resolved soon.
So the current alignment of the greenway does cross that property, quote
yes,
unquote, illegally, or
yes, that's correct.
And it doesn't sit within the sewer easement. So if the project was approved from our end and you had the money, at some point you would end up stopping at either side of the property until that's resolved. Is that what happened?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The other question I had was, what percentage of the request that you all have presented to us is for the trail versus the remaining improvements of that 370 some odd thousand?
2/3 would be allocated for the trail.
Okay.
1/3 would be allocated for ecological restoration, which would be applied to the entire 14-acre footprint of the Greenway.
Great, thank you.
We have time for one more question. Anyone have?
Just a comment, I remember visiting that Shelburne site with Mark Hunt many years ago before it was purchased, and also since then with the Friends, people in the Friends, and you all have done an incredible job with the non-native invasive plants. I mean, it was a mess then, it was a jungle, but it's much improved.
Yeah,
So
thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. I know that you know invasive, so I appreciate that coming from you.
Great. Well, thank you, Jack and Jake. That wraps us up for presentations for today. Kevin had to log off, so I'll first pause and see if we have anyone online for public comment. I don't think we do, but no. Okay. And then Matt, if you would like to, well, first, our next meeting is next Tuesday, June 25th at 12 p.m. It will also be virtual. But with that, Matt, if you'd like to take us through adjourn.
Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
And everybody say aye or nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll see you all next Tuesday. Thanks everyone who presented today. That was very informative, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you all.
Yeah, and good job, Jill, organizing everything.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jill.
Yeah.
And
sorry for being so strict on timing, guys. But
no, let's keep us in line.
It was very, very helpful.
Yes.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Way to go.
Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you to all the presenters. Oh, and first, before the subcommittee leaves, I want to introduce David. He's our new subcommittee member. Yes.
Welcome, David.
Hi, David.
Welcome.
Hello. I just listened a lot today. You guys have a lot more experience right now, so I was just taking it all in. So
jumped in at a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, David, for being willing to help us out.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.